To the insurance company that tried to break my heart. I am stronger than you ever gave me credit for. You thought I'd never leave? Well, today, I let you go. Today, I found Geico. In just 15 minutes, Geico has given me the sweet savings on my car insurance that you always promised, but never delivered. It's a brand new day, and the sun shines on my Geico automobile insurance policy with 1,000 golden rays. And never looking back. Nancy, in New York.
Geico. 15 minutes could save you 15% or more on car insurance.
Blog Talk Radio.
Mr. Tommy John, are you on the line with us?
Yes, I am.
Oh. Hey, Tommy John, welcome to Huddling with the Pro Sports Talk Radio. I'm Jay Lee, and this is our good friend Bill Gutman.
Hi, Tommy. How are you
guys? I'm doing good. How are you all?
Yeah, we're hanging in there. We're hanging in there. I'm watching baseball, so a big baseball fan, and I certainly, you and I are from the same era. I remember your career extremely well, and just for the fans out there listening to us, Tommy is known now for having an elbow ligament replacement surgery named after him, but he was one all-star great pitcher for 26 years, pitched to the age of 46 from 1963 to 89. He injured his elbow in 1974 and had a 13-3 record at the time for the Dodgers. Missed 1975, came back and was 10-10 the following year, and this was landmark surgery, the first time it had been done. He went on to win another 164 games after the surgery and finished with 288 victories in his career. Many feel, including myself, that Tommy should be in the Hall of Fame and will be one day. But again, he was the first one to have this surgery, and I'm sure he's been watching as the number of young pitchers continue to tear this ligament and undergo the surgery at a very young age. And that's what we're going to focus on. But before we do that, Tommy, I think we'd like to just talk briefly about the increase in the instant replay this year, that they're now checking, having challenges for managers at the bases and on foul balls, on steals, and just kind of get your opinion on how that's working.
Well, it was inevitable because baseball couldn't be out there in left field, no pun intended, and football's using it, and other sports are using it, and I think it's hurt baseball. I think it's hurt umpiring because, I've never seen so many bad calls. I mean, obviously bad calls, and I think the guys are trying to get it right and not have, because I saw the other day they had a scorecard of all the umpires that had the most reviews, the most this and that. Well, that's a lot of pressure on these guys. And my thing is, an umpire's call, except for Don Dinkinger's in the World Series, has anything to do winning or losing a ball game. Usually it's something else that does it, a manager's misplay or a missed call or a missed substitution or a pitcher's bad pitch or a hitter striking out with men on scoring position or whatever. Usually that loses ball games and not somebody on the base paths or back of home plate. But I think instant replay has made all these umpires fearful of making a bad call. And when you're fearful, it's like when you pitch. If you're afraid to make a good pitch, you won't make a good pitch. You'll make bad pitches. But if you just go, hey, here it is, hit it, you'll make more good pitches, and I think we've taken away from that. Plus, I think the arguments and all that, I think that was kind of fun, going back to the days of watching Earl Weaver turn his hat around and getting in their faces and doing that. And, I think that was kind of fun as a fan.
Yeah, I think I tend to agree with you. I think the issue with the instant replay right now is I don't feel like it's being used as intended. Right? They seem to, the instant replay is being used for, like you said, every little thing. The close play at first, and stuff like that. Where it was more intended for the really huge gaffes that umpires would make if there's a really outlandish call. That's what I think the instant replay was used for, and now it's being used for almost every
right.
bang bang play. And I think that's what's taken away from the effectiveness of the instant replay. And like you said, the game is being slowed down by that. I don't know if there's any way that they can I don't think they can go away from instant replay. I think there's some place in the game for it because there are some calls that need to be made. But do you think there are ways that they can improve it?
I don't know, improve it. If I were managing, I would never challenge until I got to the 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th inning, because that's when the game's won or lost generally. And, I would challenge from then on. But I don't know. I think they've got to sit down and talk it over. And, they've got Bud Selig and Major League Baseball's got a better chance of refining instant replay than they have of coming up with a recipe to quell the Tommy John surgeries.
Yeah, I think that's true. I was going to ask you, too, about the umpires because so many calls have been overruled this year, and again, on mostly at first base or on a steal at second. And you partially answered that. The umpires beginning to second-guess themselves, I guess. And I wonder how they feel about reading the next day that this play was overruled, and they were the umpire involved. So it's got to be tough on them.
Oh, I know it is. And, it's like anything else. If you want to make sure somebody does something wrong, you just say, hey, boy, just watch out for this. This is really, really tough. Watch out for this thing. Wow, this is really bad. And they'll be so conscious of not doing it wrong and trying to do it right that they'll end up doing it wrong. And I was under the thing, the umpires make most of the calls are correct. And I think that what they've done with balls and strikes, with Quest Tech and all this, that it's made those guys, it's made their booties shrink, that they're afraid to make a bad call. My God, back in the days, John Hirschbeck would, if you could throw the ball on the outside corner or just off the corner, he would go 3-4 inches outside with you. Now, because of Quest Tech, they've got all this, he missed 37 calls on the corner, and it's, again, it's forced them to try to be perfect, and they can't. They're human.
Yeah, and that's the thing that I think is taking out of the game, as you said, the human element. Because we always, growing up, you enjoyed Billy Martin charging out there, Lou Piniella every once in a while, Tony La Russa, as you mentioned, Earl Weaver. He was great, and you don't see that now, and yet. People on the other side of the coin will argue, well, the technology is so superior now that you could almost have a computer or a camera calling the balls and strikes and eliminating the umpires. So you just wonder where it's going to go someday, whether they're going to increase it even more, and then will the umpires ever take a stand and say enough? So I guess it is a question baseball is going to answer, and maybe they're going to wait till they get a new commissioner and tackle it then.
That could very well be. They want to do status quo until Bud leaves, and and he's back in Milwaukee tending bar at Jake's Delicatessen.
Yeah. So, and do you think also the stoppage of the game when they walk over and they have to bring out those little briefcases with the headphones and
it's just
it
breaks the flow of the game. I would hate that because when I'm pitching. And I was on a roll, and I wanted to get that ball and throw it as quickly as I could. And that just breaks up the timing of the game and all that. But, it is what it is. And that's why I don't even watch much baseball anymore because of all this stuff. I may watch, and I know I've never watched the All-Star game. I've been to a few All-Star games, and the only thing I really liked a few years ago, and they've screwed this up, is the home run contest. I love the home run contest, and now it's, you do this, and then they break for commercial, and then they do this, and they break this, and they go that. But I enjoy watching that. But as far as watching the game, they've taken the game out of the All-Star game, and they did that when they ended in a tie in Milwaukee at the end of 12 innings.
Yep.
And my thing, somebody asked me about it, and I said, well, geez, why don't they ever run out of pitchers during a regular season game?
Yeah,
well,
they want to get everybody in for one inning. Yeah.
That's it. Did they get them in? And I said, well, you know what? Maybe some pitchers might not get into the ball game. You may have to stay back if the game gets tied so that you play it out. And if you're going to play a game, it's not an exhibition. You play it to win, and you manage it to win. And if they would come out with the winning team, each player got $10,000, and on the losing team, they get $1,000. You would have managers managing differently, players playing differently, and it's just, it's like when we go play golf. I like playing golf, and I'll play golf and, hit the ball. But if we're playing for what? For burgers and a beer, I'll play you got my attention a little more. Well, this is what you would do in baseball. If you made the winning team get more money than the losing team, you would play different. You would play harder.
Oh, definitely. With something to play for, there needs to be some incentive for these guys, especially with all the money that they're making nowadays. Without anything to play for, a lot of them just feel like they don't even need to be there.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think years ago too, they played for league pride, because I remember that as kids we couldn't wait for the All-Star game, and then you'd see Willie Mays come out and he'd play all 9 innings. He'd be sensational. Pete Rose, the guys back then, it was a competitive game, as Tommy said, and he's right. They've taken that competitiveness out of it. It's become an exhibition.
Yeah, and you see that in all sports.
I remember making the All-Star team in the American League in '68, and then I never made it again until '78 with the Dodgers. So now I got the American League, and then we got to come in with the National League. And Chub Feeney came in and said, come on now, this is not a win. This is for league pride. We're better than those blankety blank blanks. And then Johnny Bench got up, and Pete Rose got up, and they got up. Gonna kick their like this, and they're ranting and raving. And when you left there, I went, holy moly! Now I see why the National League kicks butt all the time, because these guys are passionate about it. Now I couldn't even tell you who won last year, nor do I care.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
All right, I think we've got that down. I think now it's time to talk about the famous surgery that is named after you. And, of course, they're calling it an epidemic now, with young pitchers going down left and right, several of them now for a second surgery. It's now taking effect with young pitchers that everyone wants to see. Steven Strasburg had it the year after he came up, and Matt Harvey last year. Now young Jose Fernandez at 21 has gone out. The Braves lost 2 starters, Medlin and Beachy, to a second surgery. And it's obviously there's been some closers. Bruce Rondon had it this year. So there's been a couple of Bobby Parnell of the Mets. There's been some closers. So it's not that they're throwing too many innings. At the same time, they're babying the pitchers with pitch counts and innings limits, and nothing seems to stop it. So I think this is something that, of course, you were the first. So before we get into the young pitchers today, when you Dr. Job decided to do the surgery on you, did you look at this being the first, this is going to end my career? Did you think you would come back and pitch as well as you did for so long?
Well, that's the only reason I had the surgery. He told me, he said, we've waited 3 weeks, 4 weeks, and you've rehabbed it, and you've done this, and you still have pain. And he said, you really don't need the surgery, and you'll be fine. He said, but I can tell you 100% you'll never pitch Major League Baseball again. And I said, okay, what if I have the surgery? He said, you probably won't pitch Major League Baseball again. And I said, give me some odds, 50-50. And he said, if I told you 50-50, I'd be lying. And he said, I don't know. He said, it's not very good. And I said, what? And he said, I don't know, 2, 3, 4%, something. He said, I don't know, because I've never done it, and I've never done it. He said they have done the tendon transplant surgery on polio patients, so they knew how to do it. They knew the technique, but they've never done it on somebody that uses their arm like a major league pitcher. So I wanted to play Major League Baseball. And and people said, oh, you had to be scared to death. Absolutely not. I was not scared, because if I didn't have the surgery, I wasn't going to pitch.
Yeah, and you were only 31 years old.
I wanted to pitch. Well, I was only 31. Yeah, exactly right. And, I knew that I didn't think I'd pitch till 46. But, I knew that I had some good years left in me. And so we opted to have the surgery.
You pitched to 46. We can barely get some of these guys to pitch to 35. It's amazing nowadays. Wow. Oh.
Well, crazy. I think one of the reasons that they don't pitch past 35 or 6. Not that I did not make a lot of money, but I made good money. But I think the guys make so much money now that when they get to that 34, 5, 6, why do you want to bust your butt and go out and put yourself through all that stuff? I've got all this money in the bank. I've got it invested. I can go have a good time and live out my life. And I think that weighs in on a lot of their thought process. I really do. I really and truly do.
I couldn't disagree more. And I think, to the point earlier, that's to some degree, that's probably what takes away from the game, the competitiveness of the game, is that all the money involved, they've made the money and they've lost the actual joy of the game. Some of them, you see the enthusiasm that they show on the field, and they love playing. But like you said, some of it is that they've made enough and now they're comfortable. So they kind of they cut it off short. Since you had the surgery, has there been any has it hurt more like recently? Did it come back, or did anything else develop after the surgery?
No, my elbow has never bothered me, ever since then. My shoulder kills me now, and as I got out and started playing, batting practice and in minor leagues, throwing batting practice, my shoulder's killing me, absolutely killing me. And my shoulder now, the joint's all loaded up with arthritis, but I just my elbow's fine.
Interesting. The going back to the surgery and the lack thereof earlier, in your generation and even a little before, there were a whole group of great pitchers, and you can just name Gibson, Seaver, Palmer, Ryan, Marichal, Jenkins, Carlton, Blylev, and Cott, guys that pitched 200 to 300 innings a year after year after year. None of them had their careers interrupted by elbow problems or a ligament problem. If you go back in time to the great pitchers of the past, from Cy Young, Walter Johnson, Mathewson, they all pitched a long time, no elbow problems. What is happening today that has changed it and having so many of these young pitchers tearing the ligament?
Well, is there any one answer? No, I don't think there is. I think you can kind of look at things and say, this could probably be a reason. And it's my theory, and I know a lot of orthopedic surgeons think this also. This influx of the last 2 or 3 years, 4 years, where you've seen it start to go up and up and up, these are the tip of the iceberg of pitchers that have been pitching since they were 7, 8 years old and pitching in year-round baseball. Pitch in the spring, pitch in the summer, pitch in fall ball, go to a pitching academy in the winter and do all this. They never let their arms rest. And I think that now you're starting to see the buildup of all these things. You can put pitch limits and all that on these kids, and in the minor leagues and in the major leagues. But it's what they do when they were 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, pitching year-round. I know Dr. Andrews said that a kid should pitch 7 months and then take 5 months off and play another sport. But if you would tell that, and I think the big thing that AAU and select teams, travel teams, all these things, we can get your kid ready for the showcases and all this, that you're only going to stop it when you can convince mom and dad that they don't know as much as they think they know about the arms and all that. Most of the parents are living their lives vicariously through their kids, and they want their kid to be the next Justin Verlander, and he's not going to be. He's probably going to be a guy that works on Wall Street and makes $10 jillion, but he's not going to be Verlander. It's the odds. The odds are there's 4.5 million kids that played Little League Baseball throughout the world, and there's 750 that play Major League Baseball. Do the math, and the chances of these kids going on are less and less and less. And and I think that you play baseball when it's baseball, and you play football when it's football. You play basketball or soccer or whatever, and you just be a kid. But kids are not allowed to be kids anymore. They have to be these robots that go play 12 months a year.
Yeah,
exactly. That's a big change in the sport, in all sports. And I see it with my two kids. Like I always tell everyone, nowadays you have to go to camp. You have to go and sign up for travel softball, travel soccer, in order to make the school team in high school. If you don't start at 5 years old playing AAU and travel sports, you're not going to make the high school team. Whereas back in when I was growing up, I never played CYO basketball. I played pickup ball, baseball, street, stickball, and I was able to make a team. If I followed that same route, there's no way I'd make a team the way it is, the way the competition is nowadays, with everyone always going to trainers and clinics and this and that. It's amazing how the mentality has changed over the years.
Well, my son was a very, very good athlete in high school. He was outstanding in baseball, and he was a very, very good basketball player, but he couldn't play on his high school basketball team. So I went up and I asked the coach, I said, and he was a junior, and I said, Coach, there anything that we can work on, that my son and I can work on to, because he's not getting to play a lot, and if there's something that he's not doing right, then we'll work on it and get it better. And he said, oh, no, he's fine. I said, but he's not getting to play. And he says, well, no. He said, I can't play him over the kids that played on my AAU basketball team in the summer. I said, no, Tommy played American Legion baseball. Well, that's it. He said, if he wants to play for me, he's got to play AAU basketball. And I said, then he'll just play baseball, thank you. And I turned around and walked away. And I right then, and now this was back in 1995, that this high school basketball coach was not going to play his best players, but he was only going to play the players that played on his AAU summer basketball team. And that's bullshit.
Yeah, I think you do have bad coaches out there that they want to win so badly that they'll throw the same kid with 2 days rest, and they'll throw him 9 innings or 10 innings if it's an extra inning game. That seems to be happening. I remember doing a book on sports injuries for young kids, and they talked about repetitive use injuries when kids play only one sport as they're growing up. The bodies are not ready for that. So, and I think from your generation and mine, you did everything.
We did everything. Plus, when we got home from school, we threw our books down, or we did our homework, and then we went outside. We played until Mom called us in for dinner. We climbed trees. We played games. We ran in the fields. We did all this. We were active. Now kids come home and they do that. They sit down and they play video games. They do computer stuff. They do texting. They do all this stuff, and they sit on their butts and they do nothing to make themselves stronger, more agile, And I think that has a lot to do with it also. That in fact, Al Downing and I talked about this when we were with the Dodgers back in the 70s. TJ, he said, when we were kids, we'd come home and climb trees and do all this stuff where you're doing body work. You're actually, you're not lifting weights, but you're lifting yourself. And I said, I know, and I will tell you, my kids were the same way though. They came home from school. I had a full batting cage in Minnesota, 75 feet long, 15 feet high, 15 feet wide. I had an arm machine that threw strikes. The only time my kids would use it is when I would say, hey, kids, let's go down and hit on the machine. Okay, Dad. And they would jump and let's go. I said, why don't you guys do this on your own? It's more fun with you.
I thought I was the only one like that.
Oh, no. Yeah. I said, I don't want to say this, but I want to say it. I said, if Mom and Dad, if Grandma and Grandpa had something like this for me, I said, I would never have been inside. I would never have been inside. I would have been hitting all the time.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, I always point to Bob Feller as an example. He grew up on a farm in Iowa. He comes to the majors at 17. He's throwing 300 and something innings 2 years later every year until he goes into the service. Comes out, does the same thing for another few years, and never has an arm problem. But he's probably a kid that did everything, threw rocks, threw sticks, worked on the farm. So that might have a lot to do with it. How about breaking pitches, Tommy? Do you think these kids are throwing too many breaking balls early? Could that be harmful?
No, I think Dr. Andrews has shown that if you throw it properly, a curveball has no more stress on your arm than a fastball does. And these guys say, well, they're throwing split finger pitches now. It's all the same. Whether you have a split or whatever, your arm basically does the same thing every time. And I had somebody tell me that these kids are over-pronating their arm. And I said, but that's the way your arm does. Your arm, as you throw it, your hand turns out. Yeah, but they're doing that too much, which causes this or that. And it's somebody that was trying to write a book and make a lot of money and that had no idea what he was doing.
Interesting.
Yeah. But, so it's really, what about, there's so many, they're saying the biggest, strongest kids are becoming pitchers today, and that's why slugging and home runs have dropped off. The need to get pitchers throwing between 95 and 100 now, is that also harder on the arm? These young kids are throwing too hard, too soon, too much? Do you think that's part of it?
Yes. I think that we're throwing to speed guns rather than throwing within our body confinements, But no, it's the speed gun is the worst thing that we've done in baseball. It's the worst thing that's ever been brought out. The worst, absolute worst.
Yeah, and I remember you always seemed to throw so easily.
I threw a little harder than what it looked. I was kind of like Gene Littler, or these guys that had these nice golf swings. They were fluid, and it didn't look like they were swinging hard until you got out and the ball was 60 yards by you. You went, holy mackerel. I threw it a little harder than what people thought, which was what I tried to do. I tried to have a nice fluid motion, and hitters would be lulled in that nice, easy motion, and the ball got on them a little quicker than what they were ready to hit.
Yeah. I heard John Smoltz recently say that both Greg Maddux and Tom Glavine could have thrown harder than they did, but when Maddux threw harder, the ball was straight as a string, and when he eased up a little, he had that great movement. And both of them became pitchers rather than throwers. And
exactly, right.
To that, yeah.
So with the Tommy, with the increase in injuries nowadays, do you think there's anything going on with research where hopefully it will get it better, or do you see it getting worse before it gets better?
I don't see how research can do it, because you would have to do a study of all these guys that have had Tommy John surgery, and you would have to ask them when they started pitching, how much they pitched, what they did this and what they did there, and if they pitched 12 months a year. And, I think that you would find that a lot of these kids did throw 12 months a year. And the injury itself basically is just an overuse injury, and that coupled with bad mechanics and probably throwing too hard and all, has a lot to do with it. But it's basically overuse.
Right, and that's what happens with and that's what we try to monitor. Like I was telling Bill, I've coached my son and my daughter for about 12 years now, and we try to work with the parents that we know are playing travel baseball to see if they are pitchers. If they're scheduled to pitch that Saturday, then we won't pitch them. Even if some of the best players have to catch, some of the best pitchers also catch. If they catch for 4 innings, they're not allowed to pitch that game. We're doing a lot, like you said, just to prevent the overusage of throws, just back and forth. It's just everyone's the times with the medical research and the knowledge now that we have. Like I said, as a father, as a parent, as a coach, it should be our responsibilities to teach these players the proper way to use and not overuse their arms. Hopefully that will be something that improves over the years. And like I said, we don't have these parents that think their kid in Little League is going to be the next Tommy John, the next Matt Harvey, and thinks that throwing 90 miles per hour when they're 15 and throwing breaking balls and throwing 100 pitches every day is the way to go. And they just need to do the research and hopefully be smarter with what they do, not harder.
No, you're absolutely right, and I think that we just plus. I think the mechanics of pitching have kind of changed over the years. Stuff that we did when I was starting out, we got our lower body involved more than what they do now. And I think they pitch on the thing of tall and fall, and we pitched not like Seaver drop and drive, but we got our lower body underneath us more. And that absorbed a lot of the shock of throwing the ball.
How about the change in the mound? You pitched in both the old higher mound from 63 to 68, and then they lowered the mound. Does that make a difference on the stress on the arm, a lower or higher mound?
I don't know. You would have to have somebody that has a degree in exercise physiology, and that I'm sure that it does. But the reason they lowered the mound is pitchers were too good. And the year they lowered it, Carl Yastrzemski led the American League with a 3.01 average.
Yep. And
Bob Gibson had a 1.12 ERA. I was fifth in the American League in ERA with 1.96, a 1.96 ERA, and I was fifth. And they lowered the mound to make hitters better. And I don't know. We didn't have arm injuries back then, so it probably didn't hurt us.
Yeah, because they've mentioned it both ways. Some say flat ground is easier on the arm and not throwing off.
Well, one is flat ground is easier on the elbow, and the pitch mount is easier on the shoulder. So no matter what you do, if you throw a baseball, either your shoulder or elbow is probably going to get traumatized. And personally, I'd rather have the higher mound because it's easier to get batters out.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So there's no real answer to this. It's just liable to continue until things change at the younger age levels.
Exactly.
Absolutely, that's the only way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Oh.
Wow. And do you feel just that you're going to be remembered more for having a surgery named after you than having a really great baseball career?
Well, I know Dr. Job and I will forever be linked together, and that's not a bad guy to go to have on your tombstone.
Yeah, that's true. So, well,
it's hopefully like we talked about. Hopefully, everyone gets smarter, and the young pitchers start doing more to save themselves, because I hate seeing some of these stars that come up and go down within 1 year or 2 years into their careers. Obviously, like you said, like you did, a lot of them seem to be coming back stronger and just as strong after the surgery. So that's a positive from it, but you just don't want to see it happen in the first place. But, well, Tommy, John.
Anyway, thanks for having me on. I appreciate this, and I love talking pitching all the time.
Yeah, we just want to thank you for coming on.
Yeah.
This has been great. This has been really great. Thank you for coming on, and hopefully we'll have you on again sometime.
That would be great. I call me anytime. Jackie's got my number, and just tell her don't abuse it, though.
That's a bad thing.
Great
once you
talking
get your
to you.
number.
Thanks, guys. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Tom
Bye-bye.
John.